Welcome back to Epic Agents, the Best in Real Estate podcast. In this episode, I'm talking to Kenzie Harkey. She's the founder and CEO of Simply Dare, a sophisticated and highly successful organizing company with services serving markets Atlanta, the metro area of Atlanta, and Charlotte, North Carolina. Kenzie, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to chat.
Great to have you. I've new listeners to this podcast, in case they're wondering, part of the vision for this podcast is not only to have conversations and glean insights from highly successful real estate brokers, but also to bring in professionals who are sort of real estate adjacent, right? And can offer value and tips and advice to help real estate brokers succeed in their business. So businesses like digital marketers, insurance agents, mortgage brokers, business coaches, that sort of thing. And I've really thought we've known each other for a few months now, and I've gotten to know your business pretty well, and I'm really excited about what you and your team are doing. And I've really thought that what you offer is so, is such a good thing for real estate brokers to know about and to understand and to be able to perhaps offer for their clients and build it in as sort of a value add. So I'm excited. I'm looking forward to sharing a little bit of your story and give listeners an idea of what you do. So thanks again for joining.
Yeah, of course. I'm happy to be here.
Before we dive into Simply Dare and the services that you provide, share for listeners a little bit of your background and what inspired your company.
So I started Simply Dare about 4 years ago now. I think this August will be our 4-year anniversary. And it has just been such an unexpected turn in my career path. I was in the corporate world for a little while, and when COVID happened, I was one of the many people who got laid off during that time. And it was such an interesting time because I had already been brainstorming some side business ideas before that even happened, and had come across interior decorating and then stumbled into professional organizing. And I thought, if this was a major in college, I would have totally graduated with this degree. This just sounds like the perfect job for me. And I've always been into interior design, but I knew I didn't really want to be a designer per se. But this allows me to use my organizational skills, really help people, which is always what I've strived to do with my career path. I've always wanted to do some type of service, whether it be, something in the health and wellness field, which is kind of what I was into before, or what I was in before. And then, now it's kind of morphed into also, incorporating some home aspects to that. And it's just been a really lovely convergence of what I'm interested in, what I want to do with my career, broadly, which is just helping people in some way, and being able to use my creativity. So it's just been such a fun journey so far.
I love that you sort of related the concept of serving and helping people. And I obviously believe that the basis of a successful business is one that solves a problem for, that's in high demand and solves a problem. And in other words, helps people achieve a certain goal. And I think that a lot of people, myself included, struggle with organizing their homes and decluttering and letting go. And that's the topic, the whole, letting go of sentimental things that we don't need to keep is a topic for another conversation. But
right.
I think that obviously the demand is out there for sure. And this line of work allows you to not only utilize your organizational skills and your analytic skills, but also you're able to also flex those creative muscles a little bit too.
Yes, it's a really great blend of both of those things, which I'm very happy that that's what most of my job is. It really is a lot of that, just helping people with a problem. I've really come to love managing people too. I had some experiences with leadership and managing teams before that, before starting Simply Dare, but this has taken on a whole new, taken it to a whole new level, really. And it's just, it's just one of those things. I think, organizing is something that everyone has to do. it's something that everyone can relate to. If you live in the world, you have and have a home, or go to work. And like, in some ways, you have to keep yourself organized to be able to function in society. And it's something that a lot of people really do struggle with. And I think it does come naturally to some people, but I also totally believe that it's something that can be learned over time. And that's something that we love to help clients with too, is, give them some of those maintenance tips and tricks whenever we're working with them. And they can sometimes, if they're around, they're seeing our process and they can apply it to another space. A lot of times people will get really motivated to organize another area after we get done, because they just see how powerful it is to know where your things are, to have a system in place, even just to have like a neat area that you're not used to having neat and streamlined. It's just really good for your mental health. And I'm happy that I still kind of justify my master's degree in public health by saying that I'm still helping people with their health and wellness, even though I'm not necessarily in public health anymore. But I just think back to even, when I was in high school, I used to help my mom and her friends organize their garage or their basement. And it's just funny once you start, thinking back to why this really fits me or why this really matches my personality. I'm like, I really have been doing this my whole life, before it was even a business.
To your point about the mental health aspect, I think it's worth underscoring a little bit how, decluttering and organizing a space can really reduce stress.
Oh yeah.
Right.
I
Yeah.
think that
When you're living and walking into and working in a organized space, it's far less stressful.
Oh, I know. And it's something that there's this one slide I always use during presentations. I do a lot of speaking engagements, and it's this before photo of a pantry that we did and the after. And I'll, get their take on what that before photo makes them feel like. And it's always anxious, stressed, just so many emotions come up whenever you look at this disorganized space. And the difference, it really is such a palpable thing that I think, and that's what's so great when we're working with clients and they can see the after with us and we can show them the after, and just seeing their reactions to everything is really the best part of it all.
I put an asterisk next to your statement about how much you love managing people. I think that makes you somewhat unique as well. I think that a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners, not the majority, but I would say a good portion of business owners struggle with management. And I think a lot of that probably comes from lack of management training and, skill set. But I've talked to a lot of small business owners and entrepreneurs over the years while producing various podcast platforms. And a lot of them have shared with me that like managing is the least favorite part of their job, managing people. So is that something that kind of comes naturally to you, or is that a skill that you developed through your education and career?
I think it's something it's a little bit of both, a little bit of the nature and nurture. I think I have always been a very independent person as far as, back to my childhood, just taking initiative and, especially even in college or like in, even grade school, like leading group projects, that stuff always came naturally to me. But like I mentioned before, I didn't really have a ton of professional leadership experience before starting Simply Dare. It was really just like a few jobs here and there where I was managing people, and it never really seemed like a super, I guess, intense thing as it does whenever it's your own business and that you've got these employees that you're managing, and that, that's a totally different ballgame. And, I think a lot of it has come with just training and experience too. And, reading, I do like to read business books, and, there's always some kind of leadership aspect to that, which has been helpful, or podcasts, just doing my own education with all of that. But I, in general, I think leadership can be simplified too. It's just, you just know how to treat, how treating people with kindness, I think, is really like the biggest thing to remember when you're leading. And just being patient. I think patience is, of course, always going to be something that comes with leadership, and just figuring out the right way to, go about the conversations that you have to have with your employees, and really, caring about having a culture. I think just keeping those things in mind is really the most simple way to go about it from my experience. But there's always more to learn and more to, grow, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah. Always growing, always learning for sure. Kindness, patience, and empathy, I think, are all qualities of a great leader. And it reminds me of a speech I watched recently, a keynote. It's an older keynote, obviously, of Jim Rohn, the great Jim Rohn, talking about how he learned how he wasn't a natural born leader, business leader, and coach. He, is a skill that he developed throughout his career. And he was sharing how he kind of learned the empathy and patience lessons early on in his career, and that was something that he had to overcome and develop, and made him such a stronger leader. So that's interesting that you brought that up. I think that's really, we think of CEOs and business leaders as really type A hard asses, right? Pardon my language, but and to a certain extent, you have to be tough too, and you have to be deliberate. But I think that the kindness, patience, and empathy aspect is so important. And again, probably a topic for another podcast episode, but worth mentioning again. The mental health aspect, I keep zeroing back in on that. Reducing stress when it comes to organizing a space. And I'm jumping ahead a little bit. One of the services that you offer is helping new homeowners move into their new space and unpack and organize and move in. So, and that's really helping them during an incredibly stressful and busy time, right? I mean, it's hard to imagine a more stressful, busier time than closing and moving in, and very, very hectic. So, but before we jump into that, go ahead and share with listeners kind of an overview of the services that Simply Dare offers, and what you've added over the years.
So over the years, we have tried different services, and what we've eventually, especially this year, really honed in on are 3 core services. So the first one is our home sale prep service. And I mentioned that one first because I'll go in somewhat of a chronological order. And that is great for clients who are trying to move, get packed up quickly. Maybe they've got to list their home very quickly, or maybe it's not even a quick situation. It's just that they have a lot on their plate and they need some help expediting that process of decluttering before staging, or even if they're not paying for a full-on, staging company to come in, just helping them get the clutter out of there, coordinate donations. A lot of times people, they might be holding on to a lot of furniture that they don't need at their new home, and helping them coordinate all of that, even create packing inventories for them as they're putting some stuff in storage so they can easily find things if they need access to them. And then also too, we'll come in even after the home is sold and really just help with the packing aspect. And a lot of times we're partnering with a moving company to execute those projects. So, we've got them coming in to bring all the supplies, and then we're just helping them, get everything packed up in a very organized manner. And making sure that things are just as seamless as possible, because it really is such a jarring situation to be in, to have all of your stuff just all of a sudden packed into boxes, and you're just used to being able to go into your bedroom and find something. So really just being there to help them through that process. And then we offer our signature organizing service too, which is what most people are probably thinking of when they think of a professional organizer. And that's where we'll come out and organize any space in your home. It could be a small pantry, or it could be a 4-car garage. We'll do anything under the roof, basically. And a lot of those projects are great. We'll come out and just do one space, or we might come out and do half of the home. Some of those priority spaces like the kitchen and pantry and mudroom and closets are, of course, really popular. And then the last service that we offer is the moving concierge service that you were alluding to a minute ago. And that's where we will help people on, day one of being in the new home, and we will be there, right there with the movers, with everyone else who's in the home. A lot of times there might be even decorators going in and starting to set up, certain furniture in certain places. A lot of different vendors in and out, especially if it's a new custom home. A lot of times there's still punch list items that are to be done, and our clients of that caliber are just they are just overloaded with so many things that are going on in their life. And I will say that pretty much anyone we've ever worked with for a move is not taking time off of work. And that's really why they need that extra support, because there's only so many hours in the day that you can dedicate to things that you need to do. So that service is just a beautiful service, because we are coming in and unpacking everything immediately, sorting everything into categories, figuring out the right space plan for the new layout, which can also be tough for people to figure out when they have so many other things in the back of their mind. Trying to task someone to totally space plan their kitchen and get used to a new layout is just a lot to think through mentally while you've got all these other to-dos. So that's really, I would say the kitchen and pantry is usually what we're doing on that first day. And then we'll kind of, bleed into other rooms like the closets. A lot of times kids' closets are prioritized, and their bedrooms, because, you want to make that transition especially seamless for them. And we'll go as far as, unpacking and organizing and bringing in new products to really elevate and streamline a space. And of course, doing labels and all of that. But we can even take it a step further and, launder the linens while we're doing all of this, and make the beds in the bedrooms that we're working in, and really just make the home feel as settled as possible, like as quickly as possible.
A true concierge service.
That's basically it.
And you mentioned that a couple of key priorities there would be kitchens, pantries, and kids' rooms for the moving concierge service. And so a client could secure your services not to help move in the entire home, but it's probably a lot more affordable and very common to just hire your firm to come in and help organize and unpack the kitchen, get them ready to start, eating at home, and get them settled into the kitchen and the pantry and the closets and that sort of thing. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. We certainly do have some whole home projects, and that is not as common, of course, because that's a whole, that's a whole week or maybe even a week and a half of us being in your house, day in and day out, really making sure that we're handling everything for you. And those kind of clients are really not doing much at all. But most often clients are totally fine, pitching in and helping out and unpacking and, doing some organizing in certain areas. A lot of times they will have time for some of it. It's just that they just can't handle some of the bigger spaces that require a little bit more strategy with the space planning and everything. And that is usually the kitchen, and especially in the pantry. That's a very common one too, because a lot of times people really want a nice looking, beautiful pantry, and they don't want to spend the time and the hours and the energy really measuring everything, finding what bins or baskets they like, mapping it all out, putting it all together. There's a lot of even just back end work that kind of goes into it that we take care of whenever we're planning these projects out and making sure that these spaces really do look beautifully elevated as well as functional. Functional is, always the number one priority, but we do have a design forward organization style. So, we're trying to make it look great too. But yeah, it's, it can be as simple and straightforward as possible. We can even come in and help out with just unpacking and using the products that you have. We don't require people to purchase products with us if they don't want to. It's just that a lot of times they do, or a lot of times they could benefit from certain products. So we'll handle that for them if that's what they want.
So it makes sense too that clients would hire you to come in to actually just add some hands as well to the process. So you probably have projects where the client is pretty hands-on and involved. And that kind of brings me back to a point you made earlier where you mentioned that a lot of times you're actually coaching the client and teaching them during the process so that they can sustain this organization going forward.
Right. Some people really, they might have a little bit more time, or maybe they did take that first couple days off work. It's just that they didn't want to use a whole week of PTO. So they might be there in the weeds with us and, helping us out, or not necessarily helping us out per se, but they might just be around and be watching what we're doing and asking questions. And, they might be, in an adjacent space, so we can still, communicate with them and kind of just stay in touch throughout the day while we're working in their house. but yeah, it really can be customized. We don't have set packages that are, we're trying to fit people into necessarily. All of our packages and services are totally customizable, and it really can be just coming in to provide some extra hands just to get things done quicker too.
Yeah, I thought of that as well earlier when you were talking about saving them time, and it occurred to me that yeah, it would save them from having to take extra PTO for their move, and they could save that for actual vacations, right? So who wants to burn a week of their 3-week PTO or 4-week PTO when moving into a new place when they could save that time for vacations, right? So
Exactly.
yeah, yeah, that occurred
Not
to
so
me as
much of
well.
a fun reason to use PTO.
The packing inventory too, the home sale prep where you help declutter and coordinate donations, I think that's huge as well. I think that's something I know from personal experience how time consuming and complicated that can be to once you've sorted out what you need to donate, where it should go, and facilitating the logistics of getting it there as well. But also taking inventory, packing inventory. I have a storage unit with all of our overflow things. Speaking of not being able to let things go, and I have bins upon bins in my storage unit. And in order to find something, I have to take them all out and open every single one of them because I don't have them labeled. I don't have them inventoried, right? So that hits home when you mentioned that. I can definitely relate to that. But I think that the home sale prep for a real estate broker, real estate agent going into a listing appointment and presenting their value to a potential listing client, I think that, having something like the moving service and having a partner like Simply Dare, and if they're in another market, a similar concept, similar business, to be able to also offer that to a client, say, look, we're going to, because really the best thing a real estate broker can say when they're in a listing appointment is, don't worry, I'll take care of it. Like just the homeowner has enough to worry about. Broker really should be able to come in and project manage and get everything handled as quickly and easily and painlessly as possible. And I just love the value that your company could bring to real estate agents and to their clients. I think it's really, really awesome. And they can scale the size of how much they need for you to do. So you could come in and declutter. You could come in and organize certain spaces of the home, unpack certain spaces of the home, or you can do the whole project. You could do a whole 7 or 10 day project.
Yes, that service is very popular with real estate agents because, you know, when they have a vested interest in getting this home on the market, they want everything to go as quickly and smoothly as possible, just as much as the client. And coming in and being able to see all of the client's problems and, setbacks, roadblocks that are preventing them from listing the home right now, and being able to say that they'll take care of it is huge. And I'm sure that, most real estate agents have a list of preferred vendors that they are, kind of reaching back out to for every listing, depending on what the client needs help with. And, being able to come in and kind of use our specialty for what we know how to do well. And, most real estate agents, they do sometimes, if they don't have that contact, they're kind of tasked with some of these things. That's what we've heard from real estate agents that we've worked with. They'll say, I'm so glad that, this worked out and that y'all were able to help us with this and get this done quickly, or just come in here for the day and just get this expedited, because otherwise I would have to do this. And I know from just talking to so many real estate agents that they've had stories of, especially maybe in their earlier days of their career, where they went in and helped someone declutter, or they were, taking donations for the client. And that's just taking time away that they could be serving other clients of their own. So being able to have someone to come in and be in their back pocket to call and say, hey, we've got this, this listing that we're trying to get, on the market really quickly. And even if it's not a quick situation, it could just be to maximize that price too, because that really comes into play a lot whenever you're talking about pricing a home. And of course, I'm not a real estate agent, so I don't know all the specifics, but from the feedback we've gotten, it really can be such a value just having the home look as best as it can for showings, and once it is listed on the market, and being able to even show, like, even if they're not clearing everything out, like we can come in and of course declutter, but some of the items that might be left there, even just organizing them, if you've got an organized closet versus a disorganized closet, the way that that looks to a buyer is just so different. And I think that they can even envision how their stuff can fit in this space. And that can, there's a lot of psychology, I'm sure, that goes into that with storage spaces. I think that's really a thing that is huge for most buyers, is how much storage space does this home have and how much space is in here. And even being able to see how an organized closet can look in this home, I think is a huge value.
Well, first impressions are everything, right? And if working or living in a cluttered space is stressful for the homeowner, imagine how stressful it would be for someone who's thinking about purchasing the home when they walk in and see a cluttered and disorganized home, and with cluttered and disorganized storage spaces. It's definitely a turnoff for sure. And so I think that, yeah, absolutely. And, part of listing a home is part of the process is the decluttering process. Even if a home isn't going to be professionally staged, we still have to go through and consult with the client and assist them in knowing how to declutter and what to do. So having, a company like Simply Dare in the market to be able to call on to handle that, to take that off the broker's plate and take that off the client's plate, the homeowner's plate, that's, it's huge. There's a lot of value there for sure. And, I keep thinking about the storage spaces. Again, a topic for another podcast conversation probably, but do you have any tips, like any practical, actionable tips for someone, for real estate agents? Let me get back on track with real estate brokers. What are some practical, actionable tips you would have for brokers when it comes to things to look out for or things to think about when it comes to decluttering or organizing a client's home?
So we actually have a moving guide, and it does, I'm not even trying to pitch that necessarily, but there is this like one page in there that it goes through every space and just some quick tips that the client, can do to, just do their own version of staging if they didn't want to invest in a full on, staging company. But some of the biggest things that I can think of are, of course, getting the personal items out and personal photographs, but also investing in, even upgrading in your closet if you don't have matching hangers, switching those to streamlined hangers. Some of these things I think are great to invest in because you know that you're going to be able to use them in the new home too. It's not something that you're buying now that feels like a waste of money just to get this home looking better or get it sold faster or for a higher price. That's really the beautiful thing about organizing products. They can always be repurposed in different ways. Even if you get bins for a bathroom or for a pantry, there could be some other way you can repurpose that for a different closet. But I would also say just keeping in mind to not, I was going to start going on some like decor, I guess, so like design tips, but I feel like that's a little bit more involved. But really when it comes to decluttering, I think the main thing that I always think of too is just when you go to an Airbnb, I think, for most cases, those spaces feel really nice because it's decluttered and it's housing all of the necessary and functional and useful things that that person needs while they're staying in that home for the week that they're on vacation. And when I've heard this a lot from people who do struggle with clutter in their homes, and I've always kind of like bring up this topic, and they're like, what, that makes so much sense. I never really thought about that, and that's something I think to really think of and think through when you're feeling like you want to stage something in your home or stage the whole home for your list for your home sale. Kind of just go back to those Airbnbs that you've stayed in and remember why that space felt so nice, why it felt so spacious to be in, why it felt so just aesthetically pleasing. And it's because there's no extra clutter around because no one lives there all the time. So I think that's something to kind of, it's like a litmus test or like it's just a guidepost to kind of refer back to when you're looking at your living room and you're like, okay, we've got to declutter in here. Like, what is sticking out and feeling like clunky or feeling like it's overcrowded or what's feeling like it's taking up too much space? And it might be a foreign concept to really put into practice if you are used to having a lot of things in your home. And there's plenty of people who are maximalists, not minimalists, and doing it in a tasteful way, even with decor, right? Like you can go into some really beautifully designed homes that have a ton going on and it still feels really nice. But I think, for most of us that have an average amount of things in their home and different decor going on, really just making sure, those color schemes are, of course, like feeling good on the eye, but also just getting rid of those things that feel like they're just taking up too much space. And it really could be furniture or just things that maybe you're using for a practical purpose and you do want to keep it, but maybe taking it out and then moving a chair in that place instead, or, doing some rearranging. It really can do a lot and just totally making the space feel more welcoming and inviting for someone who doesn't live there. And it helps them envision their life in that home too. So I think that can always be good, even if it is, like I'm saying, just furniture, and that's where the pods and like storage units can kind of come into play for, a month or 2 months while you're listing. And I would probably recommend not storing everything in your garage, just because they're going to walk in the garage too and see everything, hidden away in there. But even if it's furniture and other stuff that you would think of, not even personal items, I think that is always useful to think about, like the Airbnb example.
I love the Airbnb example. I think that's the kind of practical, actionable tip that I was hoping to get, and that's perfect. That really kind of helps put it into perspective what you should be envisioning your space should look like when your home goes on the market. I think that's an excellent example that most people can relate to and understand. The putting everything in the garage example is funny because I've held open a few open houses for other brokers who have staged homes, and I didn't realize that they had in the process of staging the home, they had decluttered but put all the clutter in the garage, so it's like floor to ceiling with just excess furniture and junk and bins and everything. So I think maybe don't put it all in the garage. Maybe, grab a pod or a storage unit, or it's just, that's the garage is a selling point too. You don't want that to look like a complete disaster when you show the house.
No, I think it's so worth it to just get the pod for a month, or, like you said, even a unit. Because, and I know even now more so with all of this, because we did purchase our first home a couple months ago, and it was staged. The sellers had moved out, but they had left all of their furniture here. But of course, they didn't have any of the personal items, and it really felt like an Airbnb when we walked in, like a vacant Airbnb. And the garage was totally empty too, and that was a huge selling point for us. That was one of our top 3 things we were looking for. So it really is more important than some people who maybe don't even care that much about their garage can think of.
I've shot some walkthrough videos of some custom homes here in my market for another YouTube channel, not the Epic Agents YouTube channel, but a local YouTube channel. And it's funny, I get comments on the videos. People will be like, "Hey, you didn't show the garage." I get that comment all the time, because a lot of times I don't, walk through or video the garage. And it's funny how people want to see the garage too. And I get that. I want to see it, but I just didn't think anybody else wanted to, so that's funny. Congratulations on the new home. Speaking of which, you began your company in Charlotte, built a solid team here in the Charlotte metro area, and moved to Atlanta and launched Simply Dare in Atlanta too. So you're serving the Charlotte market and the Atlanta metro area as well.
Yes. We launched our Atlanta team last April, and It's been amazing. I mean, it's just, it was a lot more well received than I thought it would be. But I realized after living here that the concept of professional organizing is a lot more common and accepted in Atlanta. And maybe accepted is not the best word, but just it's a lot more, it's more ubiquitous than it is in Charlotte. I think it's just been around here a little bit longer than Charlotte. I think at this point now, most people in Charlotte would know what a professional organizer is, but I think back in 2020, it was still kind of a foreign concept to a lot of people. The industry grew a lot during the pandemic, actually, because a lot of people weren't spending money on travel and they were stuck at home. So they thought, well, I might as well make this place feel and function as best as I can. people would always ask me how COVID affected my business. And I was like, I started it during COVID, so I don't really know what it was like beforehand, but it was for everyone that I know that had a business before 2020 in the organizing industry. It was a great thing. Of course, it was a terrible thing just in general, but just certain industries really, benefited from it, just because people were thinking, I am stuck at home, and that concept of home, and I think the importance of how it does make you feel was probably a lot more palpable for people too, and they, I think that's another thing that can happen with people. Sometimes I've even had friends like this, or just know people like this, who just constantly stay busy and they're never at home and they're always out and about and on the go. And some of those people, when you talk to them or maybe go over to their house, they might struggle with clutter or may have some of these issues. And, being busy and staying outside of their home can actually be a way to not even really think about how that is affecting them. And then once they're stuck at home, they're like, oh, wow, this is something I might need to invest some time and money into to just make it feel a little bit better in this space. So yeah, it's been just interesting seeing how different both of the markets are, coming back to Atlanta and Charlotte too. Of course, we have a lot of return clients in Charlotte because we have been there for 4 years. And even in Atlanta, and after a year and a few months, we've definitely had a few return clients that are already asking us to do other spaces or to come back. And maybe we haven't had actually many refreshes of spaces we have organized, but more so just, hey, y'all did a great job with this space. Let's do this space now. So I was going into it thinking that the worst. Of course, you always want to think of worst case scenarios whenever you're making any big jumps in business or things like that. And I was surprised at how quickly it was taking off and in the beginning. And of course, I still don't think our brand awareness is anywhere where it could be. But I've been very happy with it so far.
Still growing steadily and consistently. Yeah, our house, my wife and I were in that same boat. 2020 and 2021, we like so many other people did a lot of remodeling, a lot of organizing to create because we were never home.
Yeah.
We were always out. We, our kids are older, they're out of the house, and 2 out of 3 are out of college. And it's, we traveled as much as we could and usually ate out a lot. And, when we're stuck at home, just like everyone else, we're looking around at our space. We're like, wow, we should fix some of this up, So we did a lot of that as well. That guide, that resource that you had mentioned earlier, first of all, thank you for mentioning that. I was going to ask you if you had some resources like that. How can real estate agents access that?
So on our website, actually, it's linked in our bio, the way to get to this guide. So the resources page on our website is linked in our Instagram bio, and it's simplydare.com/links. And all of our links are housed there. Any features that we've been in with publications, any, direct access, pages to our website that we want to call out. But a lot of our freebies or, free downloads are also listed there to get on our email list. So that's included in there. There's a Charlotte moving guide and an Atlanta moving guide.
I love it. Yeah. And that's a good email list to get on. So I highly recommend real estate agents go to your social media and your website and download the guides. I appreciate your time. I know how busy you are. This is the second time I've asked you to join a podcast. I really appreciate you doing this. I think that this is the kind of value that I hope that the real estate agents and our audience is going to really appreciate. I know I do. And in return, Kenzie, I'm going to, I work hard at publishing rankings for the major metropolitan areas, real estate brokers, and also surrounding suburbs. And Atlanta and Charlotte posts have been already written and created, and they're based on Real Trends data. So I don't come up with the data myself. I rely on Real Trends. So for brokers, if you're not on our top 10 or top 20 lists, blame Real Trends. Don't blame me. But what I'm going to do, Kenzie, is reach out to these individual agents that I've highlighted in these blog posts, both in the Charlotte market and Atlanta market, and also several working on actually highlighting the suburbs of these metro areas as well. And I'm going to send them a link to this episode and ask them to, let them know that this is something that they might want to check out and you're a company that they might want to connect with. So
I
I hope
appreciate
that
it.
that brings you some value. You're welcome. You're
Thank
quite
you.
welcome. Kenzie, again, thank you so much. How can listeners learn more about Simply Dare?
I would say just heading to our Instagram page. We're very active there. We try to post stories every day. We'll post a few behind the scenes reels or before and afters are really great for people to kind of peruse through. We do have a portfolio, but I always say our Instagram is like our portfolio. If you want to really get a sense of what type of work we do and what our team is like, that's the best place to keep up with us.
I'll definitely have the links in the show notes, of course. And yeah, your Instagram feed is obviously up to date and it's a great feed. Really does highlight all the kinds of different projects that you and your team can handle. So that's very cool. I'll have links in the show notes, of course. And Kenzie, once again, thanks for joining the podcast. Have a great week.
Thank you. You too.